Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host. And folks, as you know, we're right in the midst of politics. And as you can see, I've always maintained my uniform here, obviously, and you will be seeing this on a regular basis in most cases because veterans are also very much interested in politics and the issues because they've had issues all the time. Veterans of Foreign Wars is an organization, if you will, that lobbies, if you will, for veterans benefits and a whole bunch of other issues, D.C. and locally and whatever. And they've got chapters all over the place, basically just getting these folks back into our environment and et cetera, et cetera. So I just want to throw that out to you, that we are going to be, this is why I wear this uniform and whatever, to give them some sense of recognition and at the same time to tell the public at large that they've served their country across the board. So this particular show, again, like I said, what we're going to be doing here today is that we're going to be educating and informing you, because that's really the basic platform of this show, the Oregon Voters Digest, to educate and inform. And because we got this political process coming on now, you're seeing all kinds of stuff on media, all kinds of things on media, and we're going to probably educate you and define what they're saying and and the relevancy of it as it relates to your respective communities. So with that, we're going to start off with, we've actually been starting off for quite some time, but today's show, we've got two guests that are going to be talking to you. Today is, the rest of this month up to the 15th of October is Hispanic and Latino month. So we got a gentleman by the name of George Carrillo. George ran for governor this time around, but the bottom line, we're going to be talking to George, and he's going to speak a little bit more on the whole issue of the Latino Hispanic month aspect of it. And then on the first part of the show, we got a gentleman by the name of James Posey. James was on last week, and I might have to excuse myself from the standpoint of saying that we had a little technical statics on the show, but it's my understanding. It's my understanding we've cleaned that up, and you can pick it up on YouTube, okay, with that. But anyway, James is here with me today, and he's an activist in his own right, and been very, very active in the community, in the black community specifically, and dealing with a number of issues, both from an economic standpoint, from a media standpoint, politically. At one point in time, he was a candidate for mayor. He ran for mayor of the city of Portland aspect of it. So he's very, very active, and you probably see his face from time to time, because I think we need to spend a little bit more time to educate the masses as to what black folks bring to the table from an economic standpoint and from a citizenship standpoint, and we got all this issue about the crimes and this, that, and the other. And in most cases, both of our guests that were here, both from a Hispanic standpoint and a black standpoint, they mostly get the blame for the whole issue of the violence and the shootings and things of that nature. So it's going to be very important that we educate the public on both sides of the aisles, for that matter, as to the importance of us resolving those issues, the whole issue of shootings and crime and all this, that, and the other. So these folks, you're going to be seeing them, as far as I'm concerned, as often as I can get them, and whenever they have issues that they would like to bring to the table, they will be coming here and talking. And in some cases, they'll be sitting in my chair, as far as I'm concerned. They can bring a guest, if they'd like, to talk about an issue, to basically get down to resolving these issues so we can bring this beautiful city of roses back to the table, you know what I mean? And solve some of the issues in Oregon. And like I said, I've got these guys are solid folks. They know their areas, they know their subject areas, but they're also veterans. They are veterans. They are military veterans. And you think about the contributions of a lot of these veterans. One of which I might mention, Matthew Prophet, just getting right to James Posey. And James knew him, and I knew him. He was a superintendent of Portland Public Schools, and he was a very interested guy, very neat guy. Sharp guy, very progressive guy. And he had dotted the I's and crossed the T's, and we were well on our way. And all of a sudden, but the other activities on the side that were happening sort of kind of like got folks out. But that was an education route. folks were being educated. It just unfortunately, we didn't get someone to continue that process aspect of it. But the fact of the matter is, he was a military guy. I want to make sure you know that. And I think he spent about 10 years. Yeah, he spent about 10 years. And they just recently, by the way, voted to rename the Blanchard building. Blanchard, who was a former superintendent, is their major headquarters, and it would now be called the Matt Profit Center or administrative, whatever. And so that's kind of neat. That's a neat note. They're going to be celebrating him in sometime in April or something like that. And we'll probably get that announcement and maybe have someone talk. In fact, James, I'll even ask you to maybe consider coming on, and we'll talk a little bit about Matt, if that's okay with you. Not now, but not now.
Well,
but not
let's
now.
talk about that.
Yeah, that's just another day. But today, what I want to do, we got about 20 minutes. I took that front part of it, but the bottom line, we got a few minutes here, and I want James to basically sit here and chat with us about the whole issue of the reorganization of the city of Portland. And I say reorganization. Sometimes it has all kinds of different definitions. That's why I wanted him to talk about this issue. But the whole idea, you hear things on at the end about if this so-called deal gets approved by the voters, there will be three commissioners for each area, and that's another thing we've not. This is the first time we'll districtize. We'll be districtized in the city of Portland. There'll be 4 districts aspect of it, and each of the districts will have 3 elected commissioners, and then there's a process for that piece aspect of it. But there's all kinds of things. So a lot of folks are still kind of confused and not understanding what's going on, the voting procedures and this, that, and the other. So Jane, with that, hey, come on, talk about it. Let's talk about first how did it come about? It's my understanding that city commissioners each had appointees. They had appointees, and they had these group, 20-some folks or whatever, and they had these folks. They discussed basically whole idea, what can they do to better, if you will, the system here within the city of Portland. And they came up with this idea. I think they voted unanimously that they should go that particular format. And we can talk about that. But just go through the explanation. Go on, James.
Okay.
Welcome to
well,
the.
you did a pretty good job of explaining it. I don't know why you need me here, because you just explained the whole deal in a nutshell, brother. I mean, you're pretty good at this.
Well,
stuff.
it's your lane. It's your lane.
Okay.
Not my lane.
Well,
but it's your lane. Okay, no problem.
Let me just say, it's a charter review that comes around every 10 years.
Okay.
We have an opportunity to change the charter and how we do business in the city of Portland. And, they, like you said, the commissioners chose folk to review this, come with as many suggestions and ideas.
You say charter. Now, that's a group
charter,
of folks.
Charter review.
Okay, charter review, and
committee.
And there's a composition of X number of people.
Yeah, people
that
that were
charter.
set on charter review.
Okay.
And they looked at all alternatives and et cetera. They were supposed to go nationally and look at examples, et cetera, and come back and make a proposal, submit a proposal as to how they do it, and get it put on the ballot. They were actually supposed to do the research and market it for the November election.
Right.
And
right.
So that they did that. But you mentioned that they were unanimous, and they weren't unanimous.
Okay, right,
There were 3. I can't really.
How many people were there?
I think it's about 26.
26.
Something like that.
That's a majority. That's quite a majority.
There's quite a few people. If you can get 26 people to agree on stuff, man, you done something. I don't know if anybody can do that.
Well, 23 is a lot.
Yeah, 23. Yeah, absolutely.
Left, yeah.
Well, it's from my perspective. I've already mentioned to you that I'm opposed to this.
You're opposed to it?
I'm opposed to it.
Let's talk about that. What's the opposition? What are the main points?
They sold it with the idea that it would increase minority participation. There's a better opportunity to increase minority participation.
How is that so?
Because you've got these 3 representatives that you would for each district, and so in theory, let me just repeat that. In theory, you get more opportunity for minority folk to participate in that. But there's been no evidence in other situations that.
Well, it would be a far better situation than we have right now.
I'm not so sure that's true, Bruce, because.
But is it not an issue that minorities have a difficulties trying to get people to run and actually get people? A lot of times, people have to sit around and wait around to be appointed, as opposed to being elected by the majority.
Well, I beg to differ with you. Right now, the city council is made up of minority people. You got Joanne Hardesty, you got Maps, and you got Rubio. That's three out of
But that's just started.
Well, I mean, but
That's
the
just a
point
start.
is, yeah, that just started. But the point is that people can get elected if they're minorities in this,
Okay.
in this community. That obviously they already got elected in under the current system. So to say that you just because you increase the number, you're going to get you have a better opportunity. And you know as well as I do, money drives all this, and your ability to collaborate with people with money really makes a difference. So, in my opinion, if you multiply the number of people, you multiply the number of problems.
Okay.
You know, we can't get rid of the current commissioners now. I mean, if we wanted to, we couldn't. You know, and so if you multiply that, and especially if you get incompetent people, you know, it's not about the numbers. It's about quality versus quantity. If we get people who are qualified, who are capable, who are professional, who know what they're doing in office, regardless of the color, we're going to come out with a better city. And people that I know you kind of winching at me over here like that doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day,
That's all we're doing. We're just
yeah.
educating.
Well, I'm just
educating
going.
folks.
That's why I'm
Yeah,
opposed
yeah,
to it. Is that just because you get, you know, you've been around long enough to know just because somebody's color of their skin don't make they're gonna make them be the kind of candidate or office holders that we look forward to. We got plenty of examples. Look at the Supreme Court. Look at what Justice Thomas is and what he's done for it. You know, he got on the Supreme Court, and so you got
Well, that was
plenty.
an appointment.
Yeah, well, you know, he had to go through a process, you know, and the one who appointed him was elected. You know, the people from your party, the Republican parties, appointed him. So just because
You recognizing my party? Is that
well, I'm just acknowledging that the color of
So
one's
what
skin
party
does
are
not
you?
determine.
What party are you?
Well, I'm independent. I'm unaffiliated.
Oh,
no.
oh.
Actually, I went back to the Democratic Party
Right.
when Obama was elected, and I haven't
see.
changed.
I
But
see.
I did when I ran for office. I was unaffiliated.
Oh, okay.
You know, I mean, as I always tell people, don't put me into that pigeonhole of being a Democrat, because most of the grief and suffering and pain of black people in Oregon has come under Democrats.
Was that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we know what we get under Republicans, but don't get it twisted. Most of the pain and problems that black people and other minorities face in Oregon come under the auspices of Democrats.
Okay.
Let's just be real clear about that.
Yeah, I saw that in the Portland Tribune the other day. And they did a series on the Klan, and I guess the Klan started with the Democrats.
Well, it could be because it's all twisted and turned around now.
Okay.
There used to be.
I thought I shared
well,
that with you.
Yeah, I want to just say.
I'm just sharing.
Well, let me
I don't know.
just complete this. Let's complete
All right.
this
Okay.
scenario. The Democrats back then were the segregationists and the ones that were against people of color, black people in particular. Now it's flipped. The Republicans have the moniker of always being against black people and their issues and so
Well,
forth.
where'd you get those facts?
Well, I mean, those are the things that all you got to do is look at the policies. Look at affirmative action, for example. It's going to be coming up on the docket for the Supreme Court. The Republicans are trying to kill affirmative action, anything that would make up for all the racist kinds of policies that have kept black people and brown people down. You know, they're going to be against anything that would level the playing field.
Well, it's everybody's right?
you know.
I mean, it's a debate back and forth.
Well, I'm just saying it's been, since we're talking politics, Democrats and Republicans, just don't get it twisted, because I mean, I know the history, you know the history, and oftentimes what appears to be the case is not always the case, you know, from that standpoint.
Well, I
Anyway.
noticed that part of the Republican Party. I noticed Cheney is trying to do a little something about that. She's now working with Democrats, if you will, to resolve some of the problems.
But she's a good American, you know. She's a good American. She's
Well, the
got the
Republicans
kind
are
of
good
similar-
Americans, all of them?
Yeah, some of them. You know,
What about
some of my best friends are Republicans.
Well,
If you want to put it that way.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, she's in the minority. Look what happened to her when she tried to do the right thing. They cut her off at
no,
the
she's
neck.
still there.
She's
That's
still
the problem.
there, but she didn't win her. You know, She lost her seat.
But
in
she's
Wyoming.
still there.
You know, they got more cows
I'm still
in
here.
Wyoming.
I'm still here
than they
talking to
do
you,
people.
even though you haven't gotten the facts about my affiliation. Because
I don't really. I'm just joking to you about your affiliation. I don't really know what your
that's
affiliation
okay.
is.
No, I'm non-affiliated.
Okay, I'm not affiliated.
Yeah, but I'm a Lincoln Republican.
Okay. Yeah, you're a Lincoln Republican.
Yeah, you know what that means, don't you?
No, you tell me. What
Well,
is
it just brings up the history of the whole issue of race.
Yeah, well, unfortunately,
But it's okay.
You know,
we're in
can
America.
talk about.
We have that opportunity.
We can
you can
go where you want to
articulate
go.
whatever. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But it's still at the end of the day, we're all Americans.
That's what I believe.
Okay, well, good.
You know,
No
I
problem.
believe we're all Americans, and I'm not going to hate on all them Republicans.
Right.
You know, my last show, I mentioned to you that Ronald Reagan deregulated the trucking industry that allowed me to get in because all those rigged systems that typically keep people of color out are
But you still signed in under him,
under who?
under Reagan, because he supported this the whole issue.
Oh, the deregulation he did. I mean, I didn't sign in.
No,
I
but
didn't
you-
vote for
but
him.
you were able to participate in the trucking business.
Because he deregulated the whole industry and he deregulated based upon an economic issue. He didn't do it just for black folk. In fact, anybody who
We'll talk to that issue.
Yeah, we'll talk to
We'll
that
talk to
issue
that issue.
sometime.
But you know, before I forget, let me thank you again for being here, because I noticed that the city club of Portland had invited, if you will, the other side, the folks who objected to this upcoming charter review piece, the whole issue of they did not want to participate in the debate. Did you see that?
I was not really aware of that. They've been pretty open. They've had several forums.
They put it in the press, the whole
Okay.
9 yards. But I thought it was interesting, and then it just so happened that one of the three people that you said that objected to the piece, they've given him the lead proponent. And what's his name? What's his guy?
Well, Vanin. He's the Ukrainian.
The Ukrainian
guy
right.
who ran.
And he's kind of like doing that whole peace aspect there.
Well, no. Let's be real clear about it. There's a number. Lesser Coin. You know, remember him? Lesser Coin.
Yeah.
Okay, Lesser Coin is against it. Kathleen Sadat. You know Kathleen. You know who she is. You don't know who Kathleen Sadat? No, she worked for the city of Portland. Very prominent person. Look her up. She's a very prominent black woman.
She's a Democrat.
Yeah, well, yeah, most of
Gay woman.
I thought you didn't know who she was.
All
of a sudden your memory came back.
I had
I
a
see.
senior moment at that point in time.
I see. So you know who she is.
Yeah. But
so
no, all I'm saying is that I thought it would have been an opportunity to get both sides.
Well, there
to
is
educate the public.
Yeah, just so
but
let's
he
be.
did not participate. City Club is a very prominent group.
Yeah, they are. I
And
mean, they got their lane, as you say.
They weren't. My point is that they were just trying to be fair.
I don't
I'm
know.
saying get both proponents to come to the table. There wasn't a Republican group. The City Club. I've been a member. I've been a member for years.
Yeah, I've been a member off and on, but let me just get this straight.
Yeah.
Commissioner Mapps is leading. In fact, on Monday of this week, I think on Monday, they're going to announce their alternative plan to this to the charter review.
Oh, you talking about the Maps piece?
The Maps is on the no part.
James, I'm glad you brought that point up, because I'm sitting there saying it was the city commissioners that came up with the idea of how they were going to approach this to the voters, and my point is that they're the one that laid out the format in terms of we're going to bump up the charter committee. Got me? And they all got appointees. Every city commissioner and the mayor got appointees, and they've all basically laid out the criteria and said this is what we need to do, and they gave it to them, and then they came out with the process. So now all of a sudden they're objecting to something. How many? Three of them, right?
There are three of them.
Who are the three?
Well, Fadine, for one.
Fadine. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there is a lawyer.
He's the one that ran against.
Knowles was a prominent lawyer here.
I know Knowles.
Yeah.
He's been very active.
I forget the third person is,
Yeah.
but there's at least three of them on that commission that objected to it. But they've been pretty active. They got a website. Some people who have been on there. There's another guy who was a lobbyist for the unions. I forget his name, but he was people who've already been on previous review things. And so, just because just because the city commissioners were chosen and chose people to go on there doesn't mean that the process was going to yield something in their favor.
That's the way they normally do things.
Well, I mean, according
You
to
understand what I'm saying?
yeah, well, you think it's rigged. In other words,
I
it
would
wasn't
never-
rigged.
I would
You
never
would never
say-
say it was rigged.
It was political.
Oh well, it's political. Everything's political, Bruce, whether you know it or not. You've been around a long enough time to know that
I don't-
everything is political. Step back.
This is a nonpartisan format that I know.
Well, it's political. It's political. Anyway.
No problem. Go on.
Anyway,
But
so
let's talk a little bit more about the value of it.
well, you know, as I said before, I'm against it, and my main reason for being against it is it's complicated. It's really complicated for the average citizen.
Like
you know.
what? Give me some
Like
specifics.
ranked choice voting is
What is
basically-
ranked, bro? What do they do? What
That
do they do?
means you vote, and then if your choice is not selected, then you go to the next candidate in line, and you get a score and you get a number. You somehow it's evaluated based upon how that plays out. So if your candidate, your first choice is not selected, then your votes go to the next one,
Okay.
and you kind of get a choice of going down the line to come up with the amount. So the way they score that and who scores it, I think is kind of crazy. I think you never really know where your vote is going for real. When you vote for a candidate in the current system, you know your vote is going for that one person you voted for. In this ranked choice thing, it's all combobulated, and it doesn't speak well.
But aren't they using that in other parts of the
Yeah,
country?
and some of it they say it's not that successful.
Yeah.
Some of it say it is. It just depends upon who you're talking about. Let me just explain this to you. I'm trying to give this example. When our ballots come to our house in the current system, many of the initiatives and so forth and everything on there, there's language that tells what they are and what they're not and how they should be applied. You have to have a certain level of intellectual and educational ability to decipher what is put on that ballot and how to determine which ballot and which candidate is going to be the best for you. So when you begin to complicate that, then folk who are less educated, less astute to the political systems may have a hard time deciphering where their vote really is going. So it becomes a challenge. And let me just tell you the pieces I'm worried about is people won't vote at all when they see the complexity of the system. And the reason why I say that is when ballots come to my house, we got 2 people in the house that votes. My wife brings me the ballot and wants me to figure out which way we gonna vote. And she's an independent agent. I wish she would just vote the way use her ability to decipher and make an independent choice from mine. But if it becomes complicated and people don't want to vote anyway, or they see it as a challenge, then they won't vote at all.
But what about the folks who selected those individuals? They shouldn't have been.
But you're mixing apples with oranges.
They should have been spending a little bit more time to make sure that when they selected people for that particular board, that if that was a major issue, that these people would understand what that meant.
Well, you only had 26 people, and the way these systems work, they want to come up with a consensus in order to push their agenda. And listen, what's driving this is the fact that our current system is so messed up. They want to come up with everything.
I agree with that. I was one who felt that we needed
Yeah, it's so messed up. People are desperate to come up with something different. Well, people want to pin the current state of Portland to how mismanaged our current political system and our government system
Like
is
the one
messed
we
up.
had.
Like the one we got, and so people are desperate. So they're coming up. They done throwed everything into this ballot measure, including the kitchen sink, in order to get rid of the current system. But what they fail to understand is that by complicating it and by having so many issues that should be addressed separately, they stand a good chance of getting a no vote on this whole piece. And then we're right back where we started, except that Commissioner Maps is going to propose an alternative to this current charter review
What
proposal.
about his appointees? How did they vote?
I don't know.
Well,
I don't even know who.
They
I don't.
voted for it.
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
There may be one or two of them that didn't. One of I think Vadim, for example, I might have been his appointee. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't get down into the weeds on that, Bruce.
That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's water under the bridge, though, don't you think?
Oh no, not yet.
Okay. Well,
That's why we're having the discussion.
well, at the end of the day, it's going to be on the ballot, and the voters are going to choose.
But we still recognize the fact that this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people.
That's right.
They appointed these people.
Listen to me.
Fair?
Fair. But I objected to this. I actually put a legal
understand.
complaint out there
Okay.
that was denied.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did. I was on record. I put a legal complaint out there along with some other people.
And you stated specifics.
Yeah, one of the things I was
I was thinking about
one
that.
of the things that I was concerned about is the language in the voter's guide. You have to define what it is that you're voting for.
Right.
You know that because you've been
agree.
you have to
I agree.
define it,
Yeah, I agree.
and it's and the way they set that up is that you only have X amount of words that you can put in the voter's
Right,
guide to
right.
describe it.
Right.
How are they going to explain all this stuff in the voter's guide on this one initiative and all the stuff
Well, that
that
was
they're
an
doing?
issue. That issue should have been addressed before it went into that particular publication.
Well, Bruce, that's what I said to you. I put a legal complaint against
Mm-hmm.
it. Unfortunately, I didn't follow the process, and so it was denied. It went to the court. It went to the judge. It was denied
So they denied it.
because I didn't, do
Okay, you
the
didn't.
proper notifications and stuff. So
That's-
that's what happened. But I'm just telling you, the complications of the way this charter review is presenting this gives a higher likelihood that it's going to be voted down because of the complications on that. When you read your voter's guide, you're not going to be able to decipher what the hell you're voting for.
Well, I tell you what, I was still concerned about the fact that the city club, the folks did not go. I mean,
There may be a reason for that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm saying they should have still had the debate. You get my point? So just like I'm having you here, we're talking about this thing. It's very important because the people when they get those ballots, they should understand.
They should understand
That's
what they're voting for.
And so that's where I'm coming
Yeah,
from.
yeah,
I
yeah.
appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Would you have a problem if I were able to contact one of those individuals on the other side to come and debate?
No.
on this issue?
You should. I mean, if you have the wherewithal to do
Well,
that.
just if you,
I'm
you'll
open.
be over. You'll be over.
I'm open for transparency
Okay,
on this
cool.
thing, but what I want to, I'm talking about. I'm just
We
saying
got
to
about a
you,
minute now. So
I'm just talking to you about black people in
Yeah,
particular.
right.
They're not voting at the levels they should be voting now
Right.
without this.
Right.
When they get these ballots and they see how crazy what being able to distinguish this, they will probably vote at. This is my opinion. They will vote at lesser levels than they've previously voted because of the complications of this ballot measure.
Okay.
So
You got your point.
In my mind, it's going to discourage black people from voting even more so than they are right now.
Well, hey, we got the point. This is the first minute. We're going to spend some more time. I'm going to get some other folks, another person, if you will.
In other words, you don't accept my argument. You mean
you're here and you got the first choice.
I was just crazy. What my opinions. That's not gospel. It's not enough for you to.
No, it's not. No, it's
Okay,
not.
okay. I'm
You
just checking.
got to put the collar on for that. All right, buddy. No problem. But anyway, folks, in all due respect, this is just an effort to basically educate the voter. In all due respect, and James has been out there, and he has one vote. We all have votes. And the idea
You have a constituency. You're on this show. You have a constituency. That's what I have a constituency.
Right.
And people can do what they need to do.
Exactly.
Common sense is what I'm planning. I'm hoping that people will understand.
Sounds good.
Okay,
James,
thank you very much for being.
So thank you very, very much, and I will see you maybe sometimes on the race here. If you got any more ideas, let me know so you can get up here
On the race?
on this. I know you do.
On what race you talking about?
Not now.
You want to talk about the city commissioners race between Renee Gonzalez and Joanne Hollis? That's what you need to get me on, so we can talk about that.
We can get that. Okay, fine. Take care, buddy.
Okay, buddy.
Have a good one.
All right, good one.
Thanks, man. Okay, go around that way.
Go around that way. Get away from the camera.
Okay, you're right.
I hope we don't have no stag in this one.
Go that way.
No,
Thank you, buddy.
No static.
You're right. No, there won't be. see how it goes. Thanks again, James. I'll be talking to you later on today, okay?
Okay.
And check out the YouTube as far as
Yeah, I will.
the new one, okay?
I'm cool.
And YouTube, okay, fine. As you can see, folks, it's community television. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about community. We're talking about the little folks. You know, we don't have access to all of the commercials and this, that, and the other. I mean, in fact, we're still not listed in the media like the radio. You know how they normally announce and identify the programs. You know, TV guide and things of that nature. We haven't even got there yet. They refuse to put us in there. So, like I said, and for those of you who are out there and you love this particular program, please share with your neighbors and this, that, and the other, because this is where you get the facts. This is really where we get the facts. It's very, very important. And again, here's my next guest right now, and we got George. George here. George Carrillo.
There you go.
But he's a Marine too, by the way, folks. He normally has his cover. He doesn't have his cover today, but he's a Vietnam vet. In all due respect, a very neat guy. He had quite a race. I thought he did an excellent job. He did an excellent job. In fact, he was on the show. You can check out the history if you want to know a little bit more about this guy. You can check out YouTube, and there he is. You can go back in time and see who he is and his background. So we don't need to spend that much on his background as much, because it's there, it's recorded. But now what we want to talk about is what is on his mind now. The way we're starting this deal, as I indicated before at the start of the show, this is like Black History Month. We've got Hispanic Latino Month, and it's in now, and it'll be here till October the 15th. The next day is going to be my birthday. So this is very unique. But George is here, and I'd like for him to spend some time and talk a little bit about what is Hispanic Latino Month, what it means to him, and what are some of the activities around there, and et cetera. And I'm sure he's going to probably identify some of the folks who are running for office. That'll be a great thing to do also too. And his rationale and whatever. So whatever's on his mind, we're going to open it up that way, and right up front with it, we're going to have him on for some of the future shows, because just like I had with James Posey, the guest I had initially, talking to the black community, very, very important. And the same thing with George here, Mr. Carrillo, is same thing. Because in all due respect, especially now, people are really, really concerned about the whole issue of homelessness and this, that, and the other. But in most cases, they identify the shootings and the killings and whatever with blacks and Latinos and Hispanics. That's a fact. Got me? And so we want to know, we're all Americans.
Yes.
And we got to solve this problem. These are all human beings, and that to me, there's always a justification, not justification, but a reason for why folks are doing about, and why people are identifying, etc. That's why I made that point about the Portland Tribune did a beautiful job in about 5 different issues, talking about that this was a major Klan conclave here in the state of Oregon.
Yeah.
And they did it right here in Portland, Oregon. You had free copies of the paper, got me? And people were objecting and calling the Tribune to tell them to pull those things out.
Right.
It was an insult, so to speak. But if you read it, it was during that particular time. It was a money maker and a political thing.
Right.
But they used blacks and Hispanics and Latinos because that's another arena. That's, in all due respect, that's another reason why I identify myself. I'm a non-affiliated, but I'm a Lincoln Republican. Because when you say Lincoln, there's a history there.
Right.
Lincoln was dealing with the issue of blacks, Latinos, Hispanics, Japanese, Chinese, the whole 9 yards. But it was specifically those 2 groups. He was identifying, but we don't spend enough time. It's not even talked about in the history books.
Right.
It's still an issue. So, but at the same time, it's still American. I mean, like I said, George spent time in the Marine Corps, and Posey was he was in the Air Force. And I was in the Marines, and I was in the service. So we got honorable discharges.
Yes.
This, that, and the other, and so when we went down there to fight, we were fighting for this country, and this is part of our country. I'm not no minority. I'm a majority in many ways. So let's get that straight. So George, I don't want to take too much more of your time. Hey, it's your time now. Talk to us. Let us know what about Latino and Hispanic Month. What is it?
Well, this is just a great month for
When
the
did it start?
opportunity.
Give me all this. Give me all.
So, I'll be honest with you, where this started in the United States, I have no idea. But I think in this country, we want to try to emphasize, the Black community, the Asian community, the Latino community.
Yes.
I think, though, we need to sort of get away from that ideology that there's just this 1 month
Right.
out of the year.
Right.
That our culture and our rich heritage, it's there throughout the entire year. And there's so much to learn about each other that we should be doing more on a regular basis, just more than on a monthly basis.
And we do that all. We got German month.
Yep.
We got what is it? The Irish. We got all Italians. We do the whole 9 yards. In fact, we all have festivity days.
Yep.
Everybody has that time.
Yeah.
And I visited all those sites. You have too when you were running for office. You visited all those sites and shaking hands and this, that, and the other aspect of it. But at the end of the day, it's one America.
It is.
It's the 4th of July for everybody.
It is.
You see what I'm saying? And we just basically went through this whole issue with the Juneteenth piece.
Mm-hmm.
You got me? And when in fact, it just happened to be President Biden
Right.
that signed this deal over. The same thing Lincoln signed up way back when, the 1863 aspect of it. Well, he said, boom, that's it. Now it's all part of the deal. It's part of the 4th of July. So maybe at some point in time in the future, we're going to have one big bash, which we're having now,
Right.
the 4th of July. And
Well,
we're
I think
all
that's where
part
we
of that
need to
melting
come
pot.
back, though.
Yes.
At the end of the day, we're all Americans.
Yes.
And so we need to be able to celebrate that because we are a melting pot.
Yeah.
This is, immigration is what built this
Right.
this country,
Exactly.
and it continues to run this country. But I think for Latinos and for this month and between September and October is the time for us to be able to share in our rich heritage,
Yes.
for people to be open to listening that
Yes.
we're more than just what people believe in the media.
Yes.
That we are educated, we have a rich culture, we are community leaders, we have deep family values. We're both on all sides of the political spectrum, whether we're independents or Republicans or Democrats. At the end of the day, though, we have very strong family ties, and we're always going to show up for each other, just like any other community.
Sure.
But it just shows up differently in the way that we speak with each other, and the way that we take care of each other, the way we cook for each other, the way we have learned to survive in America today.
Well, the thing was one of the things that comes out really comes out. I can remember early on, way back when, because I spent a lot of time in the education arena aspect of it, and when the whole issue of English as a second language
Yes.
came out, aspect of it, they didn't spend enough time educating the public across the board what that meant. It is still English as a first language.
Right.
But in terms of why they did this whole issue, they just caught the Hispanic piece in kind of a negative. Well, it should be speaking all American. Well, they are speaking American, but they didn't spend enough time on that piece aspect of it, and so that too sometimes kind of closes the door, doesn't open the door line enough to be an acceptance. So we at some point we're all together.
Right.
But I want to throw that out there because it still is English as a first language, so to speak. But the whole education piece is that, hey, it is, as you say, the culture and this, that, and the other. How are you going to learn about another person's culture if you don't open the door to it?
Exactly.
Make it part and parcel of the whole.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I want to make sure I throw that out there.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else, bud? Talk to
So I think right now, after my run for governor ended, I've just been really focusing on voters showing up to vote. Honestly, I don't care whether you vote for Betsy Johnson or Tina Kotek or Christine Drazen. I want people of color to show up and vote. Historically in Oregon, we account for about 14% of the population here in Oregon, Latinos or Hispanics, but only 1.9% actually show up to vote, right? That's a big margin.
That's huge.
And so, this is the time that we have to show up and vote. For me personally, I've endorsed Christine Drazen, who's the Republican candidate, and I think it's taken people off their course. They're like, what are you doing? You're a Democrat. You ran as a Democrat. You've identified yourself as a Democrat. And, political titles are just that. They're just titles. When we think about who is going to lead our state in the right direction, after you throw out all of that political noise, especially on the national level, it comes down to who do I feel is going to be the right leader. And, you know, the thing when I ran for governor is that I would always do what's in the best interest for Oregonians. And this endorsement supports that. That I am willing to work across political aisle to help elect the person that I think is going to do the best for Oregon
Right.
when it comes to our homeless crisis, when it comes to the wealth inequality that we have in this state, when we have, you know, low law enforcement presence, when we have epidemic when it comes to our drug addiction and mental health failures. These are all things that I believe that Christine has the solution for. And in my opinion, that's who I think needs to be our next governor.
That's kind of interesting, and I really appreciate that too, because, and I'm glad you're here, because I've invited the other two candidates, and they've not responded. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Got me? And basically, as you know, I ran for mayor
Yes.
during that particular time, and I'm basically the same format that platform that he lays out is basically the same thing. You know, when we went down there, the fact that war wasn't a separate situation. See, we signed on the dotted line.
Right.
We enlisted. You know, so the name of the game is that it's important that we understand who these individuals are and what their platform. What do they bring to the table
Exactly.
for the benefit of us all? You know what I mean? And it's unfortunately that a lot of times, as I've seen, I've been in this business for quite some time, that they don't stick to the issues.
Yeah.
They don't stick to the issues, and they don't stick to the solutions in many ways. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that I know everything, but the fact of the matter is, if you're going to represent me, I've got the right to ask you a question in any way, form I can.
Right.
You see what I mean? And that's a very important piece, aspect of it. And so when you call someone up and if you don't represent, excuse the French, if I'm not the Oregonian or on the Portland Tribune or I'm a millionaire or something like that, they won't even pick up the phone.
Right.
But I still have that vote.
Right.
I got to vote.
Well, you know, to be fair to each candidate, you know, being in that seat,
Yes.
it's difficult. You have to be everywhere at every moment,
Yes.
especially across the state, and we've got about 5 weeks to go, right? But that's where it takes people from a campaign, people that believe in their candidate to be able to show up to shows like
Yes,
this.
yes.
Just like I believe in Christine. I know that she's extremely busy and she's, you know, here and there and all over the place. But I'm here as, you know,
As a rep.
as a representative of myself to say, this is the reason why I endorse Christine. Because
And because
it
of your
matters.
platform and the issues that you brought up when you ran for governor, the same
Exactly.
one. And and then sharing this with the public across the board.
Right.
See what I mean? And if those other two, I'm sure, if those other two entities would have been basically on the same format, you'd be having a difficult time to a certain degree. But I know you, George, and I really appreciate and respect you for that because we do have some issues, and we got some major issues right now, and in the state throughout the country. But I'm talking about Oregon. We're talking about Oregon when it's the governorship.
Right.
We got the homeless issue aspect up there, and like I indicated to you, as it relates to Black and Hispanics and Latino aspect of it, the whole issue of the shootings and the crime thing has always been identified with those two groups.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then so it's not true necessarily, but the fact is, if we don't have those discussions on it, we can't solve the problem.
Right.
See, and so that's what I'm expecting, if you will, of the candidates that are running for governorship. And so I really appreciate the fact that you're here because I know how you are. That you've looked at all three of those candidates and you basically picked one, and you had not actually basically identified with everything that you feel,
Right.
and the pluses and minuses and whatever. But the fact of the matter is, of what you represent, it tells me that she's going to have to identify with these issues, and she's going to have to be open, if you will, to coming up with a solutions
Right.
to those pieces aspect of it. And I'm gonna be inviting you a little bit more, if you don't mind, to be here until if those other two candidates don't come, you'll be able to speak. You'll be able to talk about them on a constant basis. And all I'm doing, is, folks, is just this is a platform and a format that a person can come and educate you, the public, because you're not running for office. That's what you're doing. You're trying to find leadership. And it's a very, very important piece. So we need to know who's going to be represented. Because as I indicated before, over and over and over, this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. not the individual person who wants to get elected.
Exactly.
And then because too often we've come from a long way of folks who visit by the election.
Right.
You got me? And so I have a little concern about media, even to this day. Because bottom line, you can buy ads, and they'll tell you in a minute, if you want to have anything to say, you got to pay for the ad routine. Well, what happens, just on the basic stuff, for instance, we do so much paperwork in government. Why can't government get involved in that paper like your utility bill? You got all that blank sheet, free, it goes to everybody, right? Everybody gets that bill. Right? And what if they had those candidates in their positions, on that paper? But again, talking to solutions, solutions, not hiring a marketing firm to basically put something in your mind, and that's what I'm seeing. And I can say it because I've been in that thing. I've run for years. Every 2 years I run.
Yeah.
To put the issue on the table with a solution.
Right. Well, there's so much money behind our politics.
Yeah.
There's not just money that's coming into campaigns, but also going out into the economy and how we are able to bring our message across to all of the voters. The thing is that too many times voters are just looking at one thing.
Exactly.
Right. And you have to look at the totality of the candidate, because the problems that we're faced with today for all of us is very complicated.
Yes, it is.
And we have to have a better way to be able to educate voters than just fear tactics. That doesn't work. I will tell you that, like, as a brown person, I am a Democrat. I've always been a Democrat. But the reality here in Oregon is Democrat leadership has not provided us with better equitable outcomes. If anything, we have been declining in this state. So how can I support a Democratic candidate to say that, yes, they're going to continue to do better when they've had that opportunity? This party has had that opportunity. Now, when we talk about Christine and having conversations with her, I can see that she is so inquisitive, that she really wants to hear from the Oregon voter base, that she is going to implement the strategies that are actually going to make the changes that we need. Because you can't continue doing the same thing and expect different results, right? That's the definition of insanity.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And so that's what we need. We need a new direction. We need a new way of looking at things, and throw out the whole Republican, independent, and Democratic title, and just look at what the real issues are today and who's actually going to make that difference. And I think it's going to be Christine.
I mean, you make a good point. You make a good point for the argument aspect of it. And I'm just saying it from the standpoint that I'm a neutral kind of a guy. I'm a non-partisan kind of a guy. But again, I'm a black guy. And you look at it that way, and then all of a sudden, they've lost the lane.
Right.
They lost the lane of the American people, the U.S. flag. That's why I wear it. That's where I wear the cover aspect of it, to remind them. Because ordinarily, if I didn't have the hat on, and if I didn't have the tie on, they wouldn't talk to me.
Yes.
They put me in a category, and that's not good. And we've become too sophisticated in our world, if you will, that we can't afford to do those kinds of things anymore.
Yes.
That's why I referenced to the facts, and I appreciated the articles that they had on the Klan. The Portland Tribune should have been all over the state, all over the United States for that matter.
Right.
And when you read it, it's not just a total anti this, that, and the other. It was an organized effort. It was about the money aspect of it. It was true hard-grown politics. Got me? From a time standpoint, and in many ways, we were still blamed. We were, but that really wasn't the blame. If you really read it.
Right.
It was a majority thing. It was a back and forth type routine, and so it's very important. So that's another reason why I'm doing this now. I've been doing this for, it's been over 25, 30 years now. I've been sitting in this seat, 40 years or so. So it's kind of an interesting piece, but it's communication, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's basic communication. And I'm not making any. I'm not saying, well, gee whiz. I want to be so sophisticated that I'm not Walter Cronkite or whatever. My name is Bruce Broussard, and I've had some exposure.
Yeah.
And that's who I am. That's who I am, and I think a very important piece. So you are doing a great job. I really appreciate the fact that you are here. and we're talking about this, and hopefully you might be able to bring some of those other candidates. This is Hispanic month, Hispanic. I hope you can. If there's some, I'm sure if anybody knows, there are Hispanic candidates out there.
Yes.
I'd like to see if you might be able to get in touch with these folks and bring them on. Tell them they can come on. And the opposition can come, no problem. I mean, I've seen some of the folks that are of late has been on TV and aspect of it. They have no problem debating anybody. They're just as articulate as anybody else.
Yeah.
But I'd be more than glad to, and then hopefully you could come and bring them, and at times maybe you can sit in this chair.
Absolutely.
But my point to you is that what I'd like to do is for you to get the candidates, give them that 15 minutes of flame, and then we can have a discussion afterwards.
Absolutely.
And then in some cases, if we want to do a debate type thing, we can put some pieces together along that particular line. And in fact, I've got a good dear friend who has a show called the Producer's Show. Richard Carpenter, and he's a very interesting guy. He's a conservative guy. He's a Republican, but he's a fair guy, and he'd be more than glad to interview a candidate or something like that. So we have some space, if you will, to really educate the public. The opportunities here. People like yourself who run for office, you know the game, you understand the background, and it's not a one-sided issue with you. It's a totality piece, and you happen to be a military person.
Yeah.
And more for the Corps than too at the same time. I recognize my other fellow members. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But brothers and sisters, in other branches of service. But I'm a little partial to a certain degree, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But the flag is still one, right?
Absolutely. But also too, like to our first responders.
Yes.
When we looked, there was an article that came out in the Oregonian yesterday.
Right.
We rank 50th when it comes to police presence.
Exactly.
In the top 50 cities in the United States, we rank last. I think it was 1.2 to every 1,000, where the national average is 2.4. When we think about defunding the police or having less of a police presence, it doesn't necessarily work, and we're seeing that. We're ranked at the bottom. On top of that, our homeless crisis, our crime, our homicide rates, our police presence, all at the very bottom of this nation. We have to show our law enforcement that we are supporting them. We need them and they need us. It is a relationship that we have to build to be stronger, but we can no longer have these conversations of defunding the police. Do they need extra training and education and more funding? Absolutely.
Well, as you say, if they've got their lanes, the folks who are running for office, but when you're talking about police, the first thing that comes out of your mouth should be law and order.
Absolutely.
Every society have to have law and order.
Right.
We'd be totally disorganized.
Right.
You get my point? And then so if you can take that piece, looking for the state, or better yet, for the city of Portland, you start thinking about how did we get to this particular point?
Right.
We had law and order. In all due respect, it was through leadership. That's how we got there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that anything in regards to our present mayor, but a lot of times, if you don't have any background and understand the definition of law and order,
right,
and you can't speak to it, so you can't lead because that's the commander in chief.
right,
You see, and so in all due respect, that's how we got here in the Portland metropolitan area. And the rest of, but I'm not knocking any. I'm just saying we got to make sure we define that leadership role aspect of it,
Right.
and the definition of law and order. And because in all due respect, when you start thinking about police, it's paramilitary. That's another reason why, if you notice, there's more of a respect for individuals who have been in the service, because we were taught that boot camp, the whole 9 yards. I mean, we had structure.
right,
And we had chain of command. And we knew that. But you look at the structure we have here in the city of Portland, we got a chief working for a politician. And then there's no structure with the troops.
right,
And we got the sergeant who's the commander in chief. That doesn't work.
right.
I'm just saying, I'm throwing this out to kind of throw this thing on the table to educate the public, because that's where their concerns are. When a person, I don't give a darn if a person been doing anything wrong. If you're living in a community and somebody breaks in your house, what's the first thing you're gonna do? You're gonna pick up the phone and call up the police and say, go catch the thief.
Yeah, but when you look at what's unfortunate with Portland right now is that they're really understaffed,
Yep.
right? So it's taken a long time for them to be able to respond. And then on top of that, they're letting a lot of people go on citations,
Yeah.
right? And that doesn't provide the safety measures that we necessarily need.
Right.
But let's get this straight. Well, what's happening right now is not the fault of our law enforcement.
No,
Right?
no.
It's failed leadership that has provided this environment. You know, we need to continue to support our police officers. Do they have room for improvement? Absolutely, right? But we shouldn't ditch the effort of law and order just because there's a few bad apples, right?
Everybody wants law and order.
Absolutely.
Even if you're a criminal.
But that's where we have gone wrong.
No, you've gone wrong.
We have gone in the wrong direction.
Leadership.
And leadership at all levels, whether it's state, local,
Elected leadership.
elected leaderships have gotten this wrong. And you know, we go off the backs of the quote unquote minority,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But what has happened in this state when it comes to minorities? We get labeled,
Yeah.
and then we have a failed system of human services that's being provided to people of color, and then we're still the victims
Yep.
of failed leadership.
Right.
That's why we have to stand up and vote.
Yes.
If anything, vote this November. Whoever you're going to vote for, but at least show up and vote. We've got to do it.
I might add now, to those other two individuals who are running for office, it's open.
Yeah.
You can come and sit down right here and I'll ask you the same question.
You know, both Betsy and Tina, I
Yeah.
don't believe that they're bad people. I know both of them.
Yeah, me, I know.
I think every party has identified what the issue is, right? We all know that, right? But each person wants to do it a little bit differently. And I think for me, as an educated voter, Christine's the person to get the job
Okay,
done.
good. And that's a good point. You made a good point. And I'm anxious to meet her one time. And maybe let her know that she's basically here indirectly because you represent her. And I know what your platform is, big
Yes.
time. And so it's very important if we can get the other individuals to come on.
Yeah.
And you have no problem being in debates or anything of that nature?
No,
With
no.
Christina, I mean, she has no problem coming in with Betsy or
You know, they've already had 2 debates, and
just say conversation.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. I'm not because the debates. That's my lane. My lane is very simple.
Yeah.
It's about the issues.
yeah,
And if we're talking about the crime and the guns that relate to black and brown folks, then as far as I'm concerned, that would be that's basically what I'd like to see. What is that position?
yeah.
Is that
And I
fair?
think you know, for your viewers, you know, there is one more debate that's happening next Tuesday,
Oh, is it okay?
and that's going to be televised on I
What
believe
date
it's-
is that? What date is that?
That, you know, that's a great question. I have no
Yeah,
idea
okay,
what the
good,
date
okay.
is. But it is on Tuesday and it is on TV.
Okay.
You know, I think a lot of conversations have happened. There's been a lot of debates that have already happened.
right.
And, you know, November is just right around the corner. It's
Yeah,
next
that's
month.
right.
And so,
But the issue that we're talking about right now, it really isn't the issue, the main issue, because of black and brown folks. The only way
Yes.
you can get it is right here. 11 Voters Digest, okay?
That's right.
And so we're going to get it that way. Thank you very much, George. This really has been a pleasure. It's been a very educational piece, and we're going to do everything we can to educate the voting public out here on Oregon Voters Digest.
awesome. Well, thanks for having me here again.
Sounds great. Well, folks, you've had it. We've had a good show, as far as I'm concerned. Be prepared to get your ballots. We're going to spend everything and time that we have to educate you about these debates. It's very, very important at this point in time. And so please join me. Have a good one. I'll see you next week. Take care.